Good morning, kids, and today we're checking out a video from TrueGreen7 about how he made a Pokemon that have one stat. Now, what he actually means by that, from what I saw of the thumbnail, is that he made Pokemon that have maxed out one stat, and everything else is like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. The one he uses for the thumbnail is the speed stat. So let's hop in and check out the others.
Hey guys, Ron here, and
what up, man?
Stats! We've all encountered a stat or two, maybe a bit of HP, some attack, a bit of defense, a couple of special attacks, a special defense if I'm feeling spicy, and some speed if I'm being completely honest. These are the numbers that make our Pokemon go round and round. Most Pokemon have a balance of 6 stats, but there are a bunch of Pokemon who specialize in a specific stat. Pokemon who are fast have high speed, and literal walls have huge defense. But on rare occasions, a Pokemon is built around one stat. Blissey has maximum HP, and therefore, design-wise, it represents the HP stat visually. This is what peak HP looks like, and you're gonna have to deal with it. So what if I design more Pokemon that embody one specific stat? Pokemon who have the maximum possible number in one stat while having the complete minimum in every single other stat. It's harder than you think, because if I were to design a Pokemon that has maximum speed, let's say, you'd think, Cheetah or Falcon, but it can't have any attack stat, or even more than 1 HP, so it can't look like it hits hard like a Falcon or Cheetah. And if I were to design a Pokemon that has maximum attack, you'd think, it's something that's massive, that hits hard. But once again, no, because it'll have 1 HP and 1 defense stat, so it can't be big, and I certainly can't make it look bulky. So this is more of a challenge than you think. And if you like the concept of designing Pokemon with all sorts of challenges, consider subscribing and checking out all my other videos. Let's begin with this task, but how about we skip HP for now, since Blissey exists, and let's go straight for attack. Attack is the trickiest, so...
Goodbye, Blissey. Hello, attack.
We're starting off really strong. In order to understand what we're going to create, we have to analyze what already exists. The Pokemon with the highest attack stats are usually legendaries, of course, but physical traits tend to be bulky arms. The problem is, like I said before, thick arms can be used as defense, and considering our Pokemon will have no defenses, I can give it big arms, but I gotta make sure that they're relatively soft and thin. The other option for big attack stat is slicing. Pokemon like Kartana, Mega Garchomp, and Mega Gallade have knives for arms, so Giant Claws is actually the direction I'm thinking about. But again, it can't be fast, so a smaller Pokemon with giant arms that it can barely lift makes total sense. What kind of animal has dangerous claws but can barely move? A sloth! This is perfect, because they're the embodiment of slowness, and very fleshy, despite having notable weapons on their body. The perfect inspiration. Fighting type is obviously the most physically offensive type, and combining it with another type like ground, which has a bunch of types that are weak to it, will make this Pokemon as offensive as possible. Plus, there's nothing more vulnerable than a sloth on the ground. So I'm drawing a sloth with 2 big hands, like I said. I wasn't lying. I want to emphasize that these aren't the thickest arms imaginable. The patterns are there to emphasize the flow of power and chi. I'm kind of kidding, but that was legitimately what I was imagining when I was designing this.
Dude, imagine having a full team of Pokemon like these. I don't mean the sloth, I mean of the video in general. All the Pokemon. Every one that he's going to make and show.
As a fighting type, it should look primal, and as a dual type with a ground typing, the color scheme kind of makes sense. Say hello to Klatak, the offensive Pokemon from Claw and Attack. A fighting ground type with a new ability called the Long Claws, which gives priority to moves that make contact as long as the Pokemon is at full HP. Klatak spend most of their days lying on the ground, digging for food. All the energy stored from their sedentary lifestyle is used up when they knock out their foes with one devastating slice. Klatak is such a fun Pokemon. It feels real, and exaggerating one aspect of it feels like what a quality Pokemon concept is usually all about.
Oop, hold on, we'll be right back. And we're back with
Defense is next, and the type is a no-brainer. The most defensive Pokemon are Steel or Rock types. Ironically, a ton of them are aquatic, since there are plenty of shelled animals at sea. That's probably the direction we're going in, since we kind of need a slow animal or object as inspiration, given that it'll have no speed. I don't want to make it a water type, since, not gonna lie, a lot of the Pokemon that we're probably gonna make today are gonna be sea creatures, since the ocean is full of the most extreme life forms on Earth, who are perfect for inspiration for our Pokemon with extreme stats. As a Steel Rock type, I was originally thinking about something that lives in the core of the Earth and is used to monumental pressure. A Steel Clam with a Diamond Pearl, but honestly that's pretty basic. We want something that looks ornate and exaggerated, considering the exaggerated stats. A turtle is boring, a Triceratops is basically a Bastiodon, and porcupines are not stationary enough for a Pokemon that'll have the speed stat of 1. We already
yeah.
have Cloyster and Clamperl. What other slow-shelled animals are there? Snail, obviously, but we already have a ton of highly defensive snail Pokemon.
Yeah,
that's why I'm going to take
true.
inspiration from a snail that we haven't seen in Pokemon yet. A conch. These rather larger sea snails are exactly what I
okay.
want. Combining the spiral shell of a conch with a castle or fortress will look pretty satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
Shuckle already represents
Sounds
a
good.
Pokemon with high defense, but it also has incredible special defense. What kind of lore can I give my Pokemon to make it believable that it has 0 special defense, but high defense? You'll see. Giving it the recognizable eyes of a conch with a giant shell modeled after European castles. I took some inspiration from Malbork Castle in Poland, considered to be the biggest castle in the world in terms of land area.
Okay.
It'll have a fortified section with spikes and some sections that look gilded and shingled. Basically multiple types of protection and fortification. Snails have these lower tentacles where the mouth would be, so I gave him these tentacles that
Mustache.
look like a mustache to make it look noble, along with this ruffled collar. This guy is basically a king in a castle, and the fact that it has no real way to move justifies its low speed, other than the fact that it's a snail. The colors were originally going to be more steel-like, but I wanted to look like the shell was made of the same stuff medieval buildings were made of, but as hard as steel. Behold, Grafense, the defensive Pokemon, from Defense and Graf, the
I
German
like
title
it.
for a noble that usually translates to Count. A steel rock type with the abilities Sturdy and Iron Barbs. Grafense are born on hills, from which they look out upon the world and spend their entire lives. Their shell is impervious to all physical attacks. However, the windows from which Grafense looks out of are their weakness. Flooding Grafense out of their home is a quite effective tactic. Discarded Grafense shells can be found throughout the region, many dating back thousands of years. They never erode or decompose. I think the fact that it's impossible to physically attack this guy, but making its holes its weakness helps flesh out the reason its special defense is so low.
Oh, yeah,
Special
that makes
attack
sense.
also has a type associated with it, the Psychic type. And while most of the specially defensive
Psychic.
Pokemon are legendaries or forms with mastery of the elements, our Pokemon will be able to be defeated with just a flick of a finger. Thankfully, there's already a perfect fictional trope to use for our tiny but powerful Psychic Pokemon. The mystical fetus. From the Star Child
Oh,
to
yeah.
Mew, there has been many fantasy creatures designed to be or look like embryos that have super intelligence or power beyond belief.
Oh,
I
yeah.
basically want to make a floating fetus that shoots lasers from the third eye on its forehead. I mean, it's a fact that many of the top 20 most specially offensive Pokemon have some kind of pattern or ornament to represent a third eye.
Some kind of
Obviously, it's not
third
going to be a
eye,
human
yeah,
fetus.
exactly.
So what other animal emits some kind of light? There are a bunch of animals that are bioluminescent, but the
Yeah.
tiniest has to be zooplankton. I assume at least.
Oh.
That's not like a fact. Plankton basically look like anything, but I'm going to use the ones that look more like krill as reference. After all, krill are basically the small fry of the ocean. So we're basically drawing a shrimp-like Pokemon in the fetal position. It'll have a giant third eye modeled after the crazy configurations planktons come in, but obviously the mind's eye in Buddhism and Hinduism. It's enlightened plankton. Literally, its eye glows. We have multiple antennas that come out of the eye like
Ooh,
eyelashes. I'm drawing the
okay.
exoskeleton and refining its proportions so the head is noticeably big. Psychic
I don't know why it seems like the video is laggy, but it's not from my end. I guess it's just recording software was acting up.
type colors with the addition of bright lights. Check out Speckrill, the emitter
There we go.
Pokemon from Special and Krill, a psychic bug type with a new hidden
Krill.
ability called Laser Brain, which gives priority to moves that do not make contact. Speckrill float around the beach shore, illuminating the night. They barely communicate, despite being incredibly intelligent. They solve problems using telekinesis. They emit a calamitous laser from the eye on their forehead. This is
Damn.
exactly what I imagined a Pokemon with these stats would look like. It's definitely a Pokemon I would have made eventually. Next is Special Defense. Probably the hardest to do because it's very tough to visualize. Attack hits hard, defense blocks, special attacks shoot something, but special defense
Shoot.
blocks elemental attacks? What would something that absorbs like a beam or a flamethrower look like? It would probably look defensive as well, and we
I was thinking like some kind of void, like a black hole kind of thing. Because, nothing can hit it.
can't
it's a
do
black
that
hole.
here. I did find a trend with the Pokemon that have the highest special defenses, which is that they have some kind of translucent part of the body, like Regice, Primal Kyogre, or Carbink. That or they're like really squishy, like Goodra, Shuckle, and Mantine. Attacks just bounce off of them. So I'm gonna make a squishy and transparent Pokemon. I was originally thinking of a camel that has like a see-through hump, but again, a camel would look like it has some kind of decent defense or HP stat. The
Yeah.
final trait that I noticed among specially defensive legendaries was actually big hands. They block with their
Big
hands
hands.
as opposed to some kind of shell. But of course, we can't give our Pokemon a big hand or else it would look too bulky, unless we make the hand see-through. A water hand makes sense. Wait a second, what
Crystal
animal
hand.
is relatively translucent and squishy? Some kind of amphibian like an axolotl. These things look flimsy, but can even regrow limbs. So What if instead of their iconic external gills, it has two huge hands made of water attached to its
Outside
face
the head?
that it absorbs attacks with? So I'm making an axolotl with huge hands instead of gills,
yes.
but a majority of the time I'm making sure it doesn't look too much like a whooper. That's why it has a completely different tail and legs that mimic the chunkiness of the hand gills, and an even better reason to not have physical hands like a whooper, because it uses the hands on its face instead. I'm adding patterns on its body to make it look transparent, like how many small and squishy amphibians are see-through, and finally its actual gills under its water hand gills. You'll understand the texture and layout of everything once it's colored.
I
There you
like
go.
this.
Here is Specialotl, the Asmodic Pokemon, from Special and Axolotl, a water type. It has a new ability called
That shiny is actually pretty good, even though the whole body just now looks like it's made out of water as well.
Permeable, which draws in moves that do not make contact and nullifies them. Specialotl swim around lakes with a relaxed smile. They use their hand gills to direct them. When Specialotl is hurt, water immediately pools around their wounds and begins to heal and regenerate. Even severed limbs, it dispels attacks by blocking with its water gills. Specialotl is a perfect Pokemon. I love
Say your worst
Hold
fears.
on. I was trying to say we'll be right back. And we're back. Let's continue.
Now, before moving on to speed, I do want to showcase a bonus design. Since I thought Blissey kinda perfectly represents and embodies the HP stat, I kinda had a big reason to not
Oh.
make a Pokemon that represented HP. But I thought sketching my idea wouldn't hurt. I mean, actually it would hurt. I have a chronic hand pain now, so
Ow.
that's kind of the reason why I didn't want to do any extra designs. But I did want to go all out for this video, which may or may not do well. We'll see. I noticed that many
Okay.
HP heavy Pokemon are huge, round, but most importantly, relatively empty. They aren't dense like a defensive Pokemon. They're skin and bones, or in Eternatus' case, just bones. So I'm gonna design a hollow Pokemon that is huge. Since less gravity is needed to
Like a balloon.
sustain huge creatures, the sea and space are the only candidates. Why not make a space whale? It's a very common trope, and honestly, there are already plenty Fakemon designs with the same concept. But I still sketched out
Whoa.
my rendition, since a black hole space whale is kind of the perfect Fakemon for this challenge. I even took inspiration from a whale shark instead, so it's not just literally a whale. It's huge and hollow, full of HP, but extremely light, without any defenses and offenses to use in battle. It just floats and consumes, doesn't really care to attack or defend. I figured as an Ultra Beast, it should be named UBHP, also known as Blubcraft. A clever combination of HP
Blubcraft.
Lovecraft and Blubber, since it's a cosmic whale
I love it.
akin to a Lovecraftian monster like Cthulhu. Speed is funny. Lots of bugs are among the fastest and could
Oh, we don't get a stat screen. Yeah, that's fine.
work for something so flimsy, but it's gonna be the fastest Pokemon alive by far. I want to base it off not just the fastest animals on Earth, who are already too strong looking for our exercise, but rather the fastest thing in the universe. Light, a living
Oh.
photon. Light is both a particle and a wave, so some kind of tiny Pokemon that has a round head and like a wavy tail makes a whole lot of sense to represent photons, at least. But for
Like
such
a
an
lightning
important
bolt.
Pokemon, I don't want to simply make a ball of lightning. That's kind of basic. Let's take inspiration from an animal that is known to be fast. Horses. Now you're thinking, Ron, you said that you don't want to use fast animals as inspirations since they look too bulky for a Pokemon with 1 defense and 1 HP.
You did
Especially
say
a
that.
horse, which are, very strong. That's why instead of a land horse, I'm going to take inspiration from a seahorse as reference. A sea dragon
Really?
already looks like a lightning bolt. And it's the perfect origin since it's tiny and flimsy. And once again, it
Uh-huh.
looks like a sentient lightning bolt. It's perfect. So
Yes,
we're clearly making a
that's right.
seahorse in the shape of a lightning bolt, which isn't too far off from the shape of a sea dragon. It has a star pupil, since those are the ultimate sources of light. Dude is like a little particle zipping through space. I gave it these ear fins that resemble the fins on a sea dragon, and the winged helmet of Hermes, the fastest
Yeah.
Greek god, but also the Flash. I gave it some front hooves, so it takes some inspiration from actual horses, and a little living lightning bolt inside it to represent its heart. Wouldn't you know, it's yellow, of course. This is Speedra, the Accelerate Pokemon from
Very
Speed
nice.
and Sea Dragon, an electric type. It has a new ability called Speed Force, which boosts Speedra's evasiveness and attack stat each turn, since it wouldn't make sense
Oh.
for such a fast and tiny Pokemon to be tough to land a hit on, and for such a quick projectile like Speedra to land serious damage like a bullet, as it
So if you want to send this out and have your first one be used in Protect, like, you could, in the theory, become untouchable
ricochets.
afterwards.
Speedra are the fastest Pokemon discovered. They dart around the battlefield with ease. They basically do what you think the fastest being alive would do, so no need to explain. I'm
Yep.
super happy with how these all turned out. Everything came together so easily, just like how easy it is to click the like button and subscribe to see more.
Alright, everyone, I have to say, that was actually pretty good and pretty funny. Of all of these, I have to go with UBHP. aka Bloodcraft. I don't know why it is, but I love it. Maybe it's the whole black hole mouth thing. Anyway, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all you kids next time when we flick back on. This is Fox, signing out. Peace.